Okay, we've just gone live. Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and happy Friday. At the moment, I am speaking to Jody Kennedy of Universal Space Studio, which is a new kind of fitness studio that has a very different approach to fitness and wellness. And so we're very pleased to welcome you, Jody. Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Great to be here.
Fab. So let's start from the beginning. What inspired you to create this space, and what are your, I suppose, hopes for people who come in?
Yeah, so I suppose this place came into being over a long period of time through my own experience with I was in the military for 12 years, so I had a lot of experience with like fitness there. I have a background in martial arts, and over time kind of exploring intrinsic or introspective modalities, like looking into myself over the last couple of years, and really understanding that our mind and our body and our spirit, and people are funny about that like spirit word, but I have the right audience here, I think. But yeah, that these three things are like inseparable, so ultimately, if we want to be a healthy being, if we want to express ourselves like truly and authentically in the world, it's about addressing all of these different aspects of ourselves, and that ultimately we can't extract one piece or the other. So in the wellness and the fitness industry now, in the scene, it's very much about isolating and extracting certain parts of the parts of ourselves that we're not happy with, and trying to fix them. But our approach is really to our tagline is connecting the spirit through mind and body, so like ultimately forming that connection with yourself again, your connection with others, your connection with nature, and your connection with I suppose the grander ideas of that we are not just bags of meat going through this world, that there's some grander kind of higher ideals that we can strive towards, and that we can so that's kind of a start.
I think you froze for a second.
Did I get kicked out?
We'll keep going. So that's brilliant. It sounds like you have a very, I suppose, a very healthy approach towards fitness and how people can be in their bodies, which is about really integrating various different aspects of themselves. And yeah, I love what you said about helping people to connect on a deeper level with themselves and with nature and with their own spirit, which is something that's obviously not talked about in the mainstream fitness industry.
Yeah, so I think we see a lot of separation in the fitness industry, and I think a lot of the markers that we're using and that we're fed are broken. So it's about external validation like aesthetics or muscle mass or body fat or performance, even as a measure. These things are things that they don't make us happy, so I know people that are like 4% body fat and they're still not happy. Like, I know people that have a lot of muscle mass and they're still miserable. I know people that can run a 10K in 38 minutes, and it doesn't necessarily make a difference to how they feel about themselves. And when you connect your happiness or your self-worth to an external thing, what happens when you can't run your 10K in 38 minutes? Or what happens when maybe you put on a little bit of body fat because you have a kid, or whatever it might be. Like, these things are not necessarily measures of our health and our wellness. They're just things that we've been led to believe are, really. And ultimately, it's about like they say, death by 1,000 cuts. Well, this is life by 1,000 cuts. You know, it's like addressing all of these different areas in small ways rather than just focusing on one single thing and putting all of your effort and your worth into that, you know. And the idea of your meditation practice being just as important as your movement practice, and your social interactions and connection with other humans being like just as much an important part of your health and your wellness and your fitness as, you know, your ability to do push-ups or your ability to lift a certain amount of weight or whatever it may be, you know. And really that kind of holistic approach to it, you know, without using a buzzword too much, but it is true, like this holistic idea of approaching it from multiple angles, and not just getting hung up on one single thing. And yeah, and really like connection is such a huge piece of this, that like I used to run a CrossFit gym years ago, and like CrossFit is a bit of a crazy, you know, extreme, like performance based, all of that stuff. But what we always saw in the CrossFit gym was that the community, the connection that people made was the big part of that kept them coming back. So they weren't necessarily coming for the burpees and the push-ups and the pull-ups. They were coming because they were connecting with people, and meeting new people and forming tribes. And, you know, like that was the big part of it. It's not the fitness. So what you see on the outside maybe is not necessarily what the most important part is to people. It's more about connecting and communicating with people. And, you know, that's such a big part. And I think now we're coming out of this like crazy time, and, you know, that's just more important than ever, like at this time. So we really feel like this has just been such a synchronous time for this to come together, you know. And like we are in a certain way railing against the fitness paradigm or the health paradigm, and trying to reframe this thing, you know. And why are we using all of these measurements? Because we're fed them by magazines, like men's health, women's health, social media, all of these things, and just reframing this whole thing and being like, what do we need? What do we want, first of all? We want to be connected. We want to be healthy. We want to be able to do the things that we want to do, feel good about ourselves. And I feel like these are much bigger and greater goals than the time that you can do a run in or whatever that might be, you know. So we are railing a little bit against the industry, but not in an exclusive way. Like, we're not saying you're wrong, we're right. We're saying this is what we're doing. This is what we feel is like valuable and worthwhile. And if you're interested in this, come on over. Like, there's no exclusivity here. This is about inclusion, and that's really at the heart of what we're doing. And there's no dogma here either. So we're not hung up on any like certain style of doing things, and just because that's the way we do it, you know. And really, the removal of dogma was a huge part of this. So I think people like reject certain things, like even yoga or meditation, because they feel like there's a dogma attached to it sometimes. And yeah, we really want to blow that open and just look at the things that work, why they work, and without dogma, and make it approachable for everybody, you know. And like, you guys have Bruce Lipton in your latest edition, right? And what a legend! Like, Bruce Lipton is just incredible. But I love that now science is finally catching up with all of these like ancient practices that have worked and that people have known have worked for so long, and now finally science is catching up, so we can say, okay, that we now know that works, you know. But you look at Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief, you know, like how we think changes the chemistry in our body, changes the expression of our genes, you know. Like, it's incredible stuff, and there's so much work like that that's being done, the same around breath work and even around yoga and meditation, that has yet to kind of, like, it's there and it's been studied, but it's yet to be kind of elevated into the mainstream and fully like recognized, you know, which I find crazy, because everything that we see, is like 10 years behind. Like the things that people, like I still get people telling me that they don't eat fat because they think it's bad for them. And I just feel like that is something that was like blown out of the water like 15, 20 years ago. But these things hang on, especially in industries where there's money being made out of them, you know? Yeah.
Going back to the holistic piece then, I know the word holistic refers to looking at the entire person, the whole person, and that includes embracing things like mental health and spiritual health as well as physical health. So I love that you are really taking the time to address those things and understand that people's maybe inner perception of themselves shouldn't be tied to whether they can still do as many push-ups as they could 10 years ago or stuff like that. Yes, moving away from these external indicators of success or achievement or whatever you want to call it, and actually going back to what makes me feel good, whatever stage of life I'm at, you know?
Yeah, and like really, it's like, what are we using as a measuring stick? If performance is your measuring stick, that is not going to last, you know. And it's all a lot of these goals are short-term goals. So, you know, I want to reduce my body fat, or I want to increase my muscle mass, or I want to run a certain amount of, you know, distance in a certain amount of time. These are short-term things. So even if your goal is a year down the road, it's still a short-term objective compared to longevity as a goal. So if we think about what, like my goal for like people that come in to work with me, say in a one-on-one capacity, my goal for them is to, first of all, to feel good and be pain-free and to be able to do the things that they need to do. So whether that's running around with the kids or the grandkids, and just being able to keep up with the pace of life without being in pain. But then beyond that, it's about longevity. So how long can you continually, you know, keep your health and have quality of life into the future, as opposed to, you know, achieving a short-term goal here and maybe paying the price for that down the road, or never being able to keep up with that, you know. So I think when we reframe it with longevity as a goal and quality of life, it just changes the whole idea of what we're approaching and how we're approaching it, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. I definitely see how universal spaces ethos could be a real game changer, really, for many people who maybe aren't able to reach the huge fitness goals that other people can reach. But when they reframe that as how can I be the healthiest that I can be for my kids or grandkids or whoever, that really, I think, is a much more meaningful goal than just can I run a certain amount of kilometers or whatever. I think being there for the people that need you and living a long and healthy life is a much more long term and meaningful thing to strive for.
Absolutely. And in that frame, you do the best for yourself and the best for the people around you, as opposed to, I find maybe a lot of the time there's a negative connotation attached to a health goal, you know. So sometimes it's like, you know, the language that we use around this stuff is, you know, it's about nearly beating the body into submission, or you know, making your body do something, and I just feel like that's like a negative way to approach it, you know. When you approach it with a broader frame, thinking about your tribe and thinking about doing the best for yourself, and being the best individual that you can be, it's about love. Then it's about, like, you know, doing the best that you can for yourself, and in that way, you have a much better approach to it. You have a much more manageable approach to it, and you're going to have the longevity over time, you know. And it's about still being happy and healthy and being able to move and dance and laugh and do all of these things when you're 70, 80, and as long as you can continue, you know. But also in the present, you know, because quality of life is so important. Like, and we have people who are super stressed, or, you know, life is stressful in general. So teaching people to manage that stress, and the breath is a huge part of that. And also not just overloading yourself with training. So if you've got this crazy life going on where you're really busy, you've got family, and then you're just smashing yourself with whatever sort of training that you're doing because you feel like that's what you have to do, you know, and that's what you've been told that you should do. Well, you're just adding stress, adding stress, adding stress, and you know, that's a snowball. That's a cascade that can happen in one direction, but in the other direction, when you're doing the best that you can do for yourself, when you're taking that time to do your bit of meditation or your mindful movement, and you know, addressing all of these different facets of your being, well, then the cascade goes the other way. You know, there's this lovely synergistic effect to that as well, where you can really start to build momentum in the opposite direction, you know. So the decisions that we make are like a switch, you know, they can send us one way or the other, you know.
Absolutely. So yeah, from a practical perspective, then, would you like to discuss maybe some of the services that Universal Space offers, like classes or coaching, whatever you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. So at the moment, we're just rolling out, like figuring out what we can do at the moment with the way things are with restrictions and stuff. So we have a online course at the moment, which it's a live online course. It's an elemental course, so it's based around this whole idea of the holistic approach to the human and the different aspects. And each element is a different aspect of where we're at. But in that course, we're doing an educational piece on the Monday, and then the Wednesday and the Friday are more practical pieces based around breath and movement, and based around mobility, and just really addressing those different pieces. But we're really trying to bring like the idea of training and breath work and even meditation together. You know, why do we have to separate these things? So we do a little bit of breath work, take a little pause for a meditation before each session, and we're very focused on the breath as we move, and for different protocols, whether it's, you know, building aerobic health or cardiovascular health or whatever. We're very focused on the breathing and different types of breathing as we move. So I think that's something that is really, like, for me, has been a game changer personally, and like I'm just really excited to bring that to other people, and the feedback that we've been getting from that is amazing. So that's a 6-week course. I'm actually the last class of that is today. Our next course will be pushing out in about 2 or 3 weeks. On top of that, I'm doing like bespoke one-on-one work with people. I love working with people in a one-on-one capacity because I can really get into, you know, the nuts and bolts of the person. And again, we're looking at it from this holistic angle. So this is not like personal training. We're looking at breath, we're looking at stress, we're looking at the nervous system, and also, of course, movement and all of that stuff as well. So that's when you won't see any squat racks here, or so. A lot of the stuff that we do is I use a lot of older style techniques like Indian clubs and maces. These are all old techniques that stretch back like thousands of years actually, and they're very holistic practices, you know. So there's a lot of elements of flow and breath just contained within these practices anyway. And at the moment, we're running the Universal Spaceship, which is a little summer festival that we're doing. So these are all free sessions. We've had handstand classes. We've done nature hikes and meditations, sunrise dips with some breath work. We're doing play classes. Play is a big part of what we want to bring in here. It's like reconnecting with the element of play, with that idea of, you know, having that playfulness. So we're doing classes based just around play. And this Sunday we have a silent movement and meditation class. That's going to be completely led by movement, no talking. And that's just, yeah, this is the type of thing that we're trying to push out. So we've got this stuff rolling out over the summer now, over the next couple of months. So our schedule for July will be up over the next week or two, and you can take a look at all the events that are happening there and sign up for them, and pop along. Yeah, if anyone is interested, it'll give you a feel for what we're about as well. And yeah, the classes then that we're going to be rolling out in person over the next while are going to be probably smaller, bespoke classes, 6 to 7 people, based around this elemental kind of style of training, and the different aspects of the human. And then the artistic side and the creative side of things is another big part of what we want to do here. So we want to run exhibitions, we want to run music events, small bespoke music events and experiences, and really branching out into that whole creative and artistic side of things too, and bringing all of that together, you know. Yeah, so that's like, we are being, I suppose, ambitious in what we're doing, but we have a big plan for this, and you know, myself and Mark are ambitious about this, and we really are passionate about bringing just this different idea. We want this to be a beacon of if you're into all of this stuff that I'm talking about, like these are the type of people that we want, you know, because we know that all of these people are out there because we're those types of people too, you know. And I think people are hungry for this kind of mishmash of all of these different aspects of health, and why do we have to separate them? Why can't we bring all these things together? And really, that's what we want to do, you know.
Brilliant. Well, it sounds like you're doing incredible work, and yeah, I really hope that things take off for you. Absolutely. So for anyone watching, if you want to learn more or book a course or a session or anything like that, I believe your website is www.universalspace.studio. Yes, so you can go there and check out everything they have to offer. Thank you so much, Jody, for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.